issue of violence at Donald Trump's rally surfaced with a Jake Tapper question at the CNN debate the other night. And when chaos erupted at his Chicago rally on Friday night, cable news went wall to wall as protesters clashed with supporters, prompting Trump to cancel the event and then to call into the anchors covering it. And the tone was strikingly different on different channels.
This is not a demonstration against war or economic conditions. This is a protest, as I understand it, against your free speech. They're using free speech. They have a right to peaceful protest to try to shut you down from your free speech.
No, I think this is a demonstration against economic conditions on both sides.
I'm close to the contention here that he wanted a conflagration this big because it's a classic strongman political technique.
Joining us now to talk about the campaign coverage, Heidi Prisbilla, senior political correspondent for USA Today. Kristen Soltis Anderson, a Republican pollster and contributor to the Washington Examiner. And Michael Tomasky, columnist for the Daily Beast. Heidi, I was watching the saturation coverage on Friday night, and as you just saw, the tone, the focus seemed to be somewhat different on Fox and MSNBC. What's your take?
One day, Howie, that was a great montage, and somebody's going to do a big expose showing a lot of montages of how the media has really helped to drive people into their ideological corners in this country. That was a great example. It's absurd to not acknowledge that Donald Trump hasn't played a role in setting the tone here. We've all seen the footage of him urging people to, punch that guy and I'll pay your legal fees, and even like promulgating racial stereotypes by picking out a black man and saying, go get a job. At the same time, it's malpractice not to acknowledge in the press that these protests have gone over the line. They've gone from what were peaceful, silent protesters standing there with signs to people who are rushing the stage, who are making 9-year-olds cry on their way outside the event and pushing women up against steel cages.
New York Times headline this morning, Donald Trump's heated words were destined to stir violence, opponents say. Now look, Trump's rhetoric is obviously fair game, Kristen, but what about the thugs who show up, who organize and punch people or try to shut down rallies?
This is what is sort of inexplicable to me about this strategy of trying to stop Trump through protests that do go over the line, is that in Art of the Deal, Donald Trump says the media loves conflict. This has been part of Donald Trump's press strategy for decades. And so from his perspective, when people turn on the news and they see images of these protesters fighting against Trump supporters, what do you think most people are going to walk away from that footage saying? They're going to walk away saying, hey, even if I don't like Donald Trump, I don't know that I think people should be hopping over barricades to come after him. It's going to make Donald Trump look sympathetic. I don't understand the strategy of the protesters who crossed the line.
Trump got hammered today in several live Sunday interviews, and he didn't give an inch. He didn't say that he feels that he bears any responsibility for the violence that has broken out. Does this feed a larger media narrative about Trump and his supporters?
It certainly does, and I think reasonably so. Maddow, you had that Maddow clip the other night. She had on a reporter from Chicago who said a very interesting thing. She said, even holding the event at University of Illinois Chicago in the first place is probably provocative. She said, I've covered tons of events here. She was a Chicago reporter. I've covered tons of events in this city. I've never seen a Republican hold an event there. It's usually out of the suburbs where there are more Republican voters.
Out and going to places where Republicans don't always go. If they only speak at, big churches or they're only speaking at country clubs, then they're filling a narrative.
You don't see this at Cruz events, you don't see this at Bernie events, and you don't see the kind of rhetoric that has set it up, teed it all off, that we've all been expecting something like this to happen.
But Heidi, when we have hours and hours of live coverage on all the cable news channels, at one point, Trump in his phone with Greta Van Susteren said, well, you keep playing the same footage of people punching each other over and over, and I think the other channels too, because we pick the most violent episodes. So is there a point there that the media might be feeding this just a little bit?
Yeah, well, they're going to play the best footage of the day, and by virtue of the 24-hour news cycle, depending on when you turn on, they're figuring, oh, you're not going to see it. Not all of their viewers will see it. So, but yeah, does that for people who are sitting there glued in front of their TV start to feed some of that anger? Absolutely.
Let me turn to the controversy involving Breitbart reporter Michelle Fields, who has alleged that Trump's campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, and we're looking at the footage here right before the incident, grabbed her forcefully. She later showed bruises on her arm in an effort to pull her away from asking a question, or that's what she alleges at least. Lewandowski says this never happened. He's tweeted that she's delusional, that she's an attention seeker. And here's what Michelle Fields told Megyn Kelly the other night.
Well, it feels awful. This has to be, aside from my father's death, the worst experience I've gone through. The hate that I have received, the emails, messages.
Michelle Fields, who's a former Fox contributor, obviously was hurt, but initially she said she never saw Corey Lewandowski. She doesn't know who did this to her. So how do we cover this when it appears to be a kind of a muddle?
Well, there was audio that was released of her talking with a Washington Post reporter in the immediate 10 seconds afterwards aftermath, where they're discussing, you know, what happened and who did it. And I think at this point, what's become pretty clear is it seems like the Trump campaign has kind of realized if their strategy is to just deny, 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 even if there is evidence, that they'll sort of get a pass for it. I mean, the interview that you did with Donald Trump earlier in the show, you came to him with quotes of things that he had said, and he'd say, no, I didn't say that. That his campaign knows that if he just simply denies, and now this strategy is being deployed in the Michelle Fields situation, they can sometimes get away with it.
On the other hand, Michael, Breitbart, which is a blatantly pro-Trump site, hasn't exactly backed up Michelle Fields. In fact, put out a statement saying it's the Washington Post reporter, who's the only apparent eyewitness, appeared to confuse Corey Lewandowski with someone else. Then this video by C-SPAN came out. Breitbart modified it quite a bit. So she's in a position where even her own bosses are not taking her side on this.
I've never heard, I don't think, in the 25 years I've been doing this, I don't think I've ever heard a news organization not stand by its reporter in a situation like this. It's just an unbelievable thing to me. And, you know, it makes them not a news organization. It makes them a Trump organization, at least in this, with respect to this incident. It's unbelievable.
All right, let me get a break. We have more to say about this, of course.